people not being able to travel, and therefore we're now in a situation where we've been everything local, buying local, thinking local, exploring our local doorsteps and our own countries. And now we can get excited, hopefully, about the global movement of tourists. And I think that's something that as destinations we've been longing for certainly the last 2 years. And with destinations like Australia making a really big push for we're good to go, we want to welcome you again. Perhaps we can start to get excited, but maybe judge it next week when everybody's back to work and the schools have reopened again. I'm joined today by a panel of sector colleagues, as I've mentioned, some representing destinations and some representing our own tourism economy here in Gloucestershire, South Gloucestershire. So we'll start off with some introductions. I'm Steve Gardner-Collins. I'm Chair and Director of Visit Gloucestershire, and I've also got a hotel group. I'm Sales Director of the Hatton Collection. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Adam Jones. I'm Marketing Manager at Aerospace Bristol, which, for those that don't know, is a museum in South Gloucestershire, most famous for having the last Concorde ever to fly on display, and basically tells the story of Bristol and the wider region's aviation heritage. So yeah, both the domestic and international markets are obviously really important to us as a major attraction. And yeah, as you say, Steve, it's been a challenging year, but we're looking ahead to hopefully the start of a recovery.
Great, thanks for joining me, Adam. Astor, Adam and I met before about a year ago. Would you like to introduce yourself, because you're new to the panel?
Yeah, and thanks for inviting me. Really interesting and exciting topics that I love to be a part of and talk about. I manage the Icelandic tourism cluster, and the cluster is kind of a umbrella for a lot of activities going on in tourism, but also in the wide value chain of tourism, or you could call it the visitor economy or the ecosystem of tourism also. We have, like, in the heart of the cluster, we have the core businesses that operate in tourism, but on the sides and below and beneath, we have the spectrum of, like, municipalities, the universities, the banks, the investors, the entrepreneurs, all the sectors that are gaining from a strong tourism industry also. So we have been working really closely in trying to showcase also and educate others that are not working in the core of the tourism industry, that this is so much broader and that this industry drives also so much on the sides. So we are a puzzle in a big, of course, a big picture, but it's really important also to be able to showcase and show the value of the industry and how it connects to so many other industries. So that is kind of my background. I have been here for 6 years and worked really closely with the companies, but also with other stakeholders in the cluster. So yeah, the last 2 years have not been the most happiest one, but also although we have also learned so much from it. So my hopes are that we come out of this stronger, but also many are extremely tired and a lack of staff and all the things that we will maybe go through during our talk.
Yes, definitely. You've touched on some of the highs and the lows of the last couple of years for hospitality. I think if there can be a silver lining, I guess naturally we want to take away all the great things that have been kind of PR for hospitality. It's had so much limelight. Tourism's been all over the news. Everybody now knows how desperate it is. I think the sector's got a lot to learn from the experience, certainly from a sustainable perspective, trying to build forward better. We all know what I was writing a piece this morning all about employment and recruitment and the skill shortages and minimum wages and long unsociable working hours, poor living conditions and staff accommodation. We kind of know what the history's been like. The last couple of decades have done us no favours. So no wonder we're kind of in this situation at the minute where there's some great PR, there's some great destination or PR that we can all benefit from. The globe reopens, take your slot on the stage as people start to decide where they're going to go for their holidays. But also I think on the ground, as you say, people are tired, but there's a lot of work to do around supply chains and employment and this kind of build back, build forward better. And we've got a lot of work to do in our sector, but there's plenty of people involved. I think to kind of muster up our contribution to the kind of levelling up and build back better. So before we met today, I suppose I wanted to ask the question. It's quite an open question, but are we good to go? Do you think? Adam and I sat here a year ago. We were probably deciding staycation was going to be another one for 2021. I was hoping to kind of come in today feeling really confident about a kind of in and outbound global movement of people. And Australia, as I said earlier, were in the media this week talking about we're going to open up and welcome visitors again. How does it feel to you? Are we good to go? Do you think we'll be kind of sitting here in a year thinking, oh, another year of staycation, or do you think it really is the year for reopening? Start with you, Astor. Reopening international again. Do you think it's going to happen?
Well, I'm super optimistic generally, so my answer will always be yes. I think so. I also thought so at this time a year ago. So I think that it's really, really good now. I mean, if one thing we know now, is that we can build much more resilience than we ever thought we could. So if something will set back, we know that we can go through it. Of course, it's tiring and it's frustrating, and yeah, people are getting tired. But I think that we have kind of also the government and all the layers in our structures all over the world have learned so much also during this time. I mean, we know now that this new spectrum of this Omicron is not as dangerous. Nobody is like dying in as much as the former one. So I think that the learning curve is, I mean, we are going through this in such a, you know, such a speed when we think about the lifetime in a way. So 2 years, they are heavy and they have been really tough, but I think that we are ready to go. And it was interesting when you were saying build back better or the norm. What is the zero ground now that we are looking to? And I think it's really interesting to think about that. Are we building back better than we were before, or from 2020 or 21? I mean, honestly, I don't think that many do remember exactly what they were doing in 2017 or 18. They were just running and doing their business and building up and they had a lot of employees and a lot of business development going on. So I think that the new norm is a way different than it was in 2018 or 19. But yes, my short answer is that I really and truly believe. I mean, Denmark has opened up, Sweden has opened up. I mean, the UK has more or less opened up. And now you mentioned Australia. So I think that what this has given us maybe is for the government to understand this industry better and its importance in all the economy. And also the inhabitants and the local people and communities have also gotten the opportunity to both go and see all the businesses and experience it for themselves in their local communities. And then in the following, understand it better, and they don't want to lose it either. So I think that we stand stronger in that case to have this like inner marketing or inner awareness of the industry, and it's important, but then also to be able to build on that and build bridges between the cultural economy also and creative industries and event management and everything that is under the umbrella of the visitor economy to make that even stronger in the forefront. So yeah, this was
very
a short
good
answer.
Short answer indeed. I think that's the problem, isn't it? We've been going through this for a couple of years, and it's really hard to answer in short because it has been a real roller coaster. We all kind of nodded when I said about we sat here a year ago and we kind of thought we'd be going into the year and it was completely different to how we thought it was. We ended up with a staycation and Omicron and others. So perhaps we can't project too far in advance, but we kind of hope now, as you say, there are lots of countries opening up, and therefore if everyone can follow suit, and generally with Omicron not being as bad and more vaccination and things, we can all but hope for a really good 2022. Adam, you're more less reliant on the international markets coming into the UK, but certainly as a destination and as a business, you were talking about earlier, you've welcomed groups, they come through on their coach tours, and they're still a part of your business. What is your thoughts on kind of like where we're at? Are we going to go around again, or are we good to go?
Yeah, I broadly agree, really, in terms of I think all of our expectations are that, you know, this is the start, if you like, of things opening up, that it's early days, but that things will hopefully gradually open up more and more from here. As you say, we're less reliant on the international market, but we definitely, you know, we do get a lot of international groups coming through to the museum, or we used to in 2019 and earlier, which we obviously haven't for quite some time now. We've definitely benefited from the staycation kind of boom in the school holidays in particular, not to the extent that we've been where we would have been in prior to the pandemic, but we've certainly seen the weekend and the school holiday audience come back much more strongly than the visitors that we see during the week. And obviously one element of that audience visiting throughout the week that we're currently lacking is the international audience. I think one challenge that we face really is that it kind of feels a bit like we're starting from scratch, because it's been so long. You know, it's been a couple of years. You know, that's a long time for relationships that we just built up and routes to market that we built up to kind of go a bit stale really and need to be revived. I think particularly, you know, for us, we only opened in late 2017 anyway, so we'd only had a couple of years to try and establish the museum as an attraction, as a destination, and yeah, we were making good progress on that just when we basically had to close. So yeah, it very much feels like there's real opportunity there now as things start to open up, but it's going to be a real challenge to communicate that and to get people back. We're ready to welcome people back, but there's a question mark over, you know, is the market there? Are people aware? Are the connections still there? What do we need to do to encourage those visits, really?
Mm-hmm. And I can maybe take that spot also related to how young like the industry is, for example, in Iceland and in many other destinations. It has been a lot of development just over maybe 5 or 7 years. Like in our case, most of the boom and the growth has been happening the last 10 years. But we were also talking about this yesterday, talking about innovation and value creation and how creative we can be and how we can run fast and so on and so forth. But preparing that to the starting point like 10 years ago and now, it's not the same, because now the companies have debts. They are like heavily, you know, involved in a heavy business, but before they were fresh and they didn't have, you know, a lot of, you know, on their shoulders like they have now. So maybe it's not, you know, fair to compare it, but also we know that there will be others that see the opportunity to come into this, and they will maybe be fresh with fresh feet and not with debts on their shoulders. But then you think about how can that be fair to the others that have been building up and yeah, they have a lot of investments and they need to come and get through that, but the others can just buy up the what is left there, kind of. So this is an issue that we need to, and some kind of an ethical issue also. I mean, will the banks like happened in the financial crisis a little bit, then a lot of companies went just in a really, people could buy them in a low price and just start fresh. So this is like an ethical question that we also need to think about. What is the power of the people to just jump on and keep on going, and who will be the ones that will look at this as a huge opportunity to come into the sector now when it's a little bit weak. So you have a lot of opportunities to grow fast, and that is maybe not what we want. I mean, we want to build on sustainability and have it like turn it a little bit around to have a sustainable growth and so on. So there's a lot of new questions that we need to raise and just take the talk about it also.
Actually, on that point, we've talked about survive, thrive. Those kind of buzzwords came up just as you were both talking, and then opportunity, opportunistics. I've noticed, particularly, LinkedIn is a great business network, and I've noticed already there are people starting to say, I'm about to buy this pub, I've just bought this one, I'm about to get this one, and I'm growing a group. And I think, with every kind of low, there's a high for some, and it does come down to economy, money, and those that have got it can spend it. And part of the recovery is also that people do buy businesses, do set up businesses. We want them to be sustainable, but the general practices, it's only been a couple of years. To change culture and an industry takes time, and there will still be those that come into the industry and they will snap up those empty properties, snap up those staff members that have been out of work. They will grow, they will employ, they will no doubt sell again, be it short or long term. And I wonder if, as you just said there, whether businesses will have businesses that survive, that have got legacy, 30, 40 years trading pre-COVID, and they'll have survived, and there'll have been those that just started, like Adam said, 2017 opened a couple of years prior, survived, hopefully, and then that kind of, you're marketing, Adam, so you must be sitting down at the moment in marketing meetings thinking, what does our marketing look like for 2022?
Yeah, I'm literally working on that. At the moment, we're working on our budgets and marketing plan for the year, and deciding on where our priorities should be and how much to invest as well, because obviously for the last couple of years, we essentially cut our marketing spend to as low as we possibly could, because we just had to survive. So we had to bring in funding, spend as little as we could, and obviously a lot of that funding was things like the Culture Recovery Fund and grants that kept us going as a charity through the pandemic. We now, as I say, given that we've got that view that things are opening up again, we clearly should invest in marketing more than we have. We need to spend in order to bring in various audiences to the museum. But it is still very difficult to know, do you stay quite cautious, hope that there's, you benefit from things like say if there is another year of staycations, and that actually just the fact that we're opening up means that visitor numbers are relatively good and we keep the marketing expenditure relatively cautious? Or do we kind of say, well, things are opening up, this is the moment, we've got to bring people back, we've got to bring in that visitor income, so we've really got to invest in this. And obviously it's not a binary option, there's different markets and different marketing channels that we can focus on within that, but the overall strategy, it's quite difficult to know what to do and how much to commit and where to spend that marketing budget to bring people in. I say at the moment we're being, I think, it's so difficult to predict the future as it has been obviously for the last couple of years, to look too far ahead, that we're mainly being led by what we're seeing right now, which as I say is the weekends are strong, the school holidays are strong. Researchers that we've seen benchmarking has shown that attractions that particularly appeal to families have been doing particularly well recently, because presumably that audience is still there, that audience is still going out more. So we're investing in those areas that are showing the best signs of recovery, and perhaps holding back a little bit on the areas where we kind of feel that we're waiting for the market to be there and for the demand to be there, basically.
cautious marketing plan. I thought I was thinking caution, and I think that's probably another something that we've all been thinking about the last couple of years, is kind of acting with caution. I guess that comes with a kind of a sustainability model, doesn't it, where you have to think and really strike a balance and act with caution and make the right decision. And that's something that we never really had to worry about previous. Astor said earlier, we were full steam ahead. We were, apart from the financial crisis that's been mentioned, certainly business development and marketing people, social media was getting bigger, more newsletters come out. I mean, how many newsletters do we receive in our inboxes daily now? People had really ramped up being in touch with their customers. And I think to pull it all back and then act with caution actually is part of contribution to kind of a sustainable build back, because it's not throwing everything at it all at once and failing. It's acting with caution so that if you do go back, then you can go forward baby steps. Astor, you must be thinking about marketing of the destination and who the audience might be for 22. What's your plans at the moment? Particularly in Iceland, for a bit like Australia, he's throwing it into the media. We're open and please come and visit.
Yeah, well, Promotion Iceland or Promote Iceland, it's called. That's like a public-private organization here that does all the marketing for like Iceland and in all industries also. And there has been a heavy focus from the government to put in money to be always tipping on their toes to make this awareness and build up awareness around the destination of Iceland during all the pandemic. And they have had awards for really creative marketing stunts. I mean, people could send their screens, for example, to Iceland, and then they were released into the nature. So people that were really frustrated could scream into the nature of Iceland. And then during the volcano, of course, we had a lot of publicity that was like free marketing also. So we took a huge advantage of that. And now we are just crossing our fingers that now in the start of 22, we would maybe have another one. So we could maybe, people could have that reason to come also. But it's funny. And I always go back to the thought, like for Iceland, nobody kind of sat down and decided that tourism should be the industry that should lead the economy of Iceland. I mean, nobody decided that. It kind of just happened. And that's the beauty of this sector. It's so, quick, and it's so dynamic also, because it's so much built like all over the world. The companies are 80% of the companies in tourism are SMEs, are small business companies that are driven by the enthusiasm of the owners themselves and their families. So the innovation level and everything is really high, but also, I mean, that comes also with maybe they don't have a lot of education in business or in marketing or in it's more just like the thrive and the energy that they have in that field. But and it's also really funny that we have been talking about that also for a long run now, or for the last 6 years, when the growth like in Iceland was really heavy, that we needed to find the guests or the visitors that would spend more money, that would stay here longer, that would drive around Iceland more and be more of a value for the destination. And what happened in 21 was exactly that. And that was maybe funny afterwards, that the guests that were the first adopters to go, traveling after this pandemic were those that had money. They spent much more money. They were here like 2 or 3 weeks, and they traveled around the country much more than the ones before. And that also raises the question about why are we always counting heads in tourism? And I think like all our estimations like now in the economy building and how we want to make the strategy going forward, that all is still built on counting the guests that are coming, but not taking into the account that maybe we need fewer, but those that are more ready to stay longer, to spend more money, and that's sustainable also. So that is something that I know that those that are really focusing heavily on marketing right now, they are pulling that out of the equation now to market to those that are willing to come, willing to stay, and also those that really are thinking about the environment, that are, you know, these travelers that really care about the destinations that they are going to. So that is my, like, they don't have to be rich or people that are coming in with private jets or something like that, but they need to be concerned about the environment that they are coming into, and respect the nature that they are visiting, and so on and so forth. So I hope that the guests of the future are those that really choose their destinations well, and want to leave something good behind. Not only their footprint, but also a really good, you know, something
positive
that could be
contribution.
resilient.
Yeah, you touched on quite a few different points then. I was kind of smirking because it's interesting as a destination, when we're all sitting in meetings at the minute and we're talking about longer stays, it creates higher spends, but we want people back into our high streets. Tourism, the supply chain of tourism is really important because it touches on so many different elements of the business network. And I think that's been realised again through this pandemic. And it's not until you close it, which is what's happened, that the businesses realise the importance of it and how many touch points there are. When you think about food and drink, when you think about, you close everything, you tell everyone to go out and exercise, and the impacts that has on the environment. So you kind of then start to think sustainability and think, how do we keep the supply chain moving, and think more local, and worry about the kind of footprint of food as it moves around the world to get onto a plate, moves around the country. But then also employment is also the movement of people too. We were really used to recruiting from an international pool of staff, and that's all grounded to a halt. And I think we're having to turn inward now and really think about our own talent. So there's lots of touch points within tourism that weren't realised. And that's something, I guess, in 2022, if we are going into a kind of true recovery phase, that destinations and businesses really need to lap up and take account of, to help it survive and thrive, because without it, the supply chain falls apart. So with all that's emerged through the last couple of years, could we actually sit here today and think that the sector is in a strong position? It can survive and kind of move forward through 22. And what do we think are the opportunities of this year, in kind of in lieu of all of that's happened? But are we in a stronger position? Are we building back better? Is it going to be sustainable? Do you think we've reached a stage where we talk about it, don't we? But do you think the sector actually will do it, or will we just resort back? Because I go back to work and I feel like in some cases we've gone just back to work. We just weren't able to go to work for a while. And that's me being on the ground, waiters and waitresses and bar staff and those kind of, all our colleagues that are actually at the coalface with the customers. What has truly changed for them? Or is it kind of everything that's behind the scenes that you don't see? And therefore, will the customer really appreciate all the work that's going into it? I'm asking loads of questions in the same sentence. This is the joy of hospitality and visitor economy. How sustainable is it? Because for my colleagues, I guess, and if I just separate myself from destination and just think about it on the ground, has anything changed for them? I'm not quite sure. What do you think, Adam, for your colleagues that show people around the museum? What do you think they'll have felt the change of the sector from the last couple of years?
Yeah, I do. And I think the point that you made about staffing is obviously continues to be a major issue, and that affects everyone. So, firstly, we've certainly struggled with staffing levels for numerous reasons. We've struggled with bringing in enough volunteers. Obviously, a lot of people have been isolating, particularly like the older generation, which make up a lot of our volunteers. That has meant that there's more work, more to do, put on other members of staff. At the same time, as everybody has pretty much, we've struggled to bring in new members of staff. We would often recruit, say, students on working part-time jobs, that kind of thing, that there's not the same travel of students in the area, or there hasn't been over the last couple of years to come in and work. And so I think everyone has definitely felt that effect, including the people who are kind of on the shop floor, if you like, that they've just not necessarily got as much support around them, or we've had to change the way that we work to be able to open as an attraction, basically. And yeah, obviously there's been a lot of changes to the way that we've worked with the way that we welcome visitors, the health and safety, COVID safety requirements, that a lot of which we're in that funny position at the moment where they're still in place, but not a legal requirement. So, staff are still wearing face coverings, visitors, some are, some aren't. We've still got a one-way route around the museum, but at one point it was very strongly encouraged. Now it's still there, but these things are starting to gradually get phased out, and they all add up to, even little things like we had to move the staff room, so people's their routine of the day, where they used to come in and where they'd socialize with colleagues, all that changed. So all of these little changes that have happened over the last couple of years are now either staying, and some of them can be quite positive, or they're starting to kind of more get phased out than suddenly cut. But then that obviously means that it's another period of change that people are having to adapt to. So yeah, I think everyone at every level of our organization, and pretty much every kind of business in tourism in our area, will have felt the impact and noticed the difference in their role and in their workload, and in how they interact with visitors and how they interact with colleagues as well.
And also what
Astor, I guess stay for you. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I was trying to help you. Let this just flow. But just what I wanted to jump into here also, because many of the business owners, they were just like really surprised about people not running back into the businesses when they opened, and they were just like, why? We are open and come back. And if you would like put this into that, we were in a battlefield, kind of. We were in a war with a pandemic, kind of coronavirus, that nobody knew exactly what was and what we were against. And you were asking this people to be against, against it like this. So you were asking the people in the restaurants, the people in the hotel, desk, and so on and so forth, to be meeting maybe the coronavirus there, just see and look it in the eyes. Because when we started in 2020, we started this dialogue together, like 4 or 5 people that we just recorded on Zoom, and we were just talking about all of this, and how we could restart tourism, how we could gain the trust of people to be around people again. Because I mean, we were the virus in a way. We were, distributing it, and how could we build up this trust again, that people would just be comfortable with each other and trusting this and so on. And I felt that also when I started traveling last summer. We went to France, and then I went in a business trip to Russia that was like completely different. But I mean, this was constantly going through my head when I met people that were in this like service kind of jobs, that they were a little bit like, they didn't want me near them. We have been like a little bit go back, step back from me. I don't want to have you near me. And that goes so much against the hospitality that we are used to in tourism. I mean, we want to hug people, and we want to talk to them, and we want to welcome them with all our hearts, So that is and tourism will always be built on humanity and the connections that we make when we come together. And I think that we still need a little bit time to kind of build up this trust and trust that we are not always, afraid of each other in that sense. But also I think that this will speed up the level of all kind of technology also. I mean, we want sustainability, and we want, and we really want the value creation to be strong within the sectors, and that goes through all the economy of this visitor economy. I mean, that goes through sales tickets, that goes through hotel managers being, more and more digital, and all of this solutions that we know now. I mean, you can now sit down in a restaurant with your code and order food and so on and so forth. So we have also, like, in this huge kind of change management that everyone is going through now, and this phase of change, I think also we are adopting much faster to new technology, and it's not as threatening as it was when we were like talking about changes and digital changes and travel tech like 3 or 4 years ago. People were like really offended that the tech was going to steal their jobs, and we were like having so many digital solutions in tourism that we would lose this touch with the human, element in ourselves and so on. So I think that maybe this will help us in a way to show that we can have more value out of, maybe we will have fewer jobs, but maybe that is something that we are faced with anyway. We need more people, and we don't have them. They are not there. I mean, they have gone to other jobs, or they have, not everyone is coming back. So we really need to step up our game here, and also, so that was my
No
thought.
more paper diaries is just what's going through my mind. I remember back in 2017, 18, 19, the annual email comes out and it says, who needs a paper diary for their event bookings and their table bookings, and all the orders come through and you've got all of them arrive, and it's so exciting when you get your new A4 diary and it's all paper. And then you get to be a sales director and you say to your teams, so what business have you got on the books? What's coming up for the summer? How many weddings? And they've got to flick through every single page. But it's kind of hereditary, and it's accepted that you would also get there was no clarity. It was just kind of in the wind. You probably had about 50 weddings on the books if you kind of read through the diary really quick. So the adoption of technology has been great. I think it's been a long time coming. And as you touched on there, having the kind of order at the table, apps to check in, it does replace people. There is a balance in this kind of sustainable future of technology. And I wrote technology to come up next as a conversation because it's really been playing on my mind when you think about employment, skills, people, hospitality. And the reason why I came into it as a career was because it was about customer service and giving somebody great experiences, and they tell 10 friends, and my marketing was, well, it's better to tell 10 friends than it is for me to try and find you in the ether of marketing. So it is about people. Technology is replacing some of the service that we are, as an industry, expected to deliver. I think it really depends on the environment that you go to, whether you do or don't expect digital to be your journey. You go to Wagamama, for example, and it's been digital for even pre-pandemic. You could pretty much order, pay, and all you see is the food arrive and go again. There's no interaction with the person. You used to get to know people, and your waiter, you'd really feel like they were looking after your table and they knew what you were having and where you were at with your drink. How many times have you been to a restaurant recently where you've run out of, the drink's finished and the food's finished, and they're out of touch with where you're at in terms of your journey at the table? Because actually, if you ordered it from an app and you don't continue to order the next round of drinks we do it all when we get there because we're all excited to get our phones out and order. If you then don't continue that relationship and you're thinking, well, where's the waiter? They haven't taken another drinks order for half an hour. It's because they're out of touch with the table and the journey you're on as much as you're out of touch with them because you use the tablet to make your order when you arrive. So again, part of 22, and I think certainly of the future of hospitality, the relationship with digital is a fine balance between this human experience and this service and expectation. We're at a kind of a risk at the minute of bad experience, because I've noticed more and more each time we go out that the gap between you and the waiter is widening, because your relationship's actually with your phone and their ordering process. Have you both experienced similar situations? Have you noticed with technology, when we're kind of not used to it in our sector? We were still on paper 2 years ago. So have you noticed technology goods and bads? Adam, start with you.
I'd say we've definitely made more use of all kinds of technology over the last couple of years, and most of it seems here to stay, really, and probably increasingly making use of that digital and technology, really, and across all areas. So like a lot of places, we did an online museum while we were closed, so lots of videos and activities and all of that published to social media and the website. We switched for quite a long time to online booking only, so people had to book online and in advance. We're seeing that switch back quite a lot now, whether it's the technology or whether it's perhaps been people not wanting to commit too far in advance to something. I'm not sure, maybe a little bit of both, but people have gone back to quite heavily towards buying their tickets when they arrive from the person at the front desk, rather than ordering online in advance. The staffing issues have led to, more use of technology, and even the things that we've not implemented yet, you can see them happening in the future. So the lack of staff at the moment means that where we used to have a couple of people scanning tickets and welcoming people into the exhibition, they're now just checked and welcomed at one point at the entrance, basically. And we've been talking about getting ticket barriers where you scan your ticket to get into the museum or to get into areas of the exhibition, where a couple of years ago that would have been a person scanning your ticket and welcoming you and having a little chat. So there are obviously pros and cons. It's in one way it can be more efficient and automated, but in another way you're obviously losing that human touch.
Sorry to interrupt, but isn't it interesting? Sorry, I'm coming in. I thought I'd keep, otherwise I'm drifting on. You touched on a really good point about the desk and people with their ticket. That's kind of leaning on a little bit of this human experience, isn't it? Because we've kind of adopted maybe temporary measures through the last couple of years, but we've all accepted that we have to book online, queue up, get scanned in. But then thinking about it, old habits die hard. And I'm wondering if maybe the expectation of not pre-booking, unless we make it a policy, which it kind of was through COVID, if people don't have to, they're kind of going to rock up. You're not going to know your visitor numbers. You're going to have queues. Is that perhaps what people will do? Old habits.
Yeah, I think people will go back to old habits, and because of course people used to, and I'm sure lots of places still do, offer online discounts, and the reason they were doing that was to get people booked in so that they're more committed. If the weather changes or something, they've already booked and paid, and to get the data, to get the idea of the visitor numbers in advance. But we were having to offer a discount to encourage that, because otherwise people weren't booking online, or not everyone anyway, or fewer people. And so unless you're offering that kind of incentive now, I think people will go back to going. There was that whole period where it was very uncertain. You thought about, like, I don't know, even going to the pub or something. You thought, oh, do we have to ring and book? Do we have to phone up and book a table at the pub? Which obviously before the pandemic, you would never have. You might have booked a meal somewhere, but you wouldn't, if you were just going to drinks somewhere or popping in, you wouldn't have thought that you had to book. But there was a period where we had to. Now I think we're clearly back to people not thinking like that. I think people know that they can generally just walk up to that kind of venue in the hospitality sector, and they'll probably have capacity the same as our museum will have capacity. Where, I think when we were working with capacity limits, people were unsure about whether they would get in as well if they didn't book in advance online. Whereas now it's everyone is more aware that, yeah, we'll be able to turn up at the museum and we'll just be able to buy our ticket from the person at the front desk, and yeah, in a lot of ways it's an easier experience for them and a nicer experience for them, more welcoming. So I think there's a big shift back to old habits, as you say.
Astor, old habits die hard, do you think?
Well, people also just get old and die. I mean, we have a new generation of people coming into this market, and they are not going to do things like we are doing it, or like our people are doing it. So, I mean, if I just look at my kids, they are turning 16 and 19. And I mean, they would never order a pizza without an app. They would never order a taxi, or at least out of Iceland, without an Uber. I mean, they are just a generation of people that just was born with their telephone in their hand, you know, and they are so adaptable to every new technology. They are so quick, and they are so, I mean, so our old habits, I know that we want things to be like they were before, but they don't know how it was before. And they are the ones that are, you know, entering into this. So we cannot forget about, I mean, that they are eating us alive in the technology sector in a way. But it was so funny because we have been running this programs here during the pandemic with a lot of companies all over Iceland, and they have all been able to join the programs because of the technology, because we can meet on Zoom, we can have this breakout sessions, we can talk about everything, and we have had this agenda that we were building up their competence while they were in this kind of freezer kind of moment, you know. So we were fostering the competence in sustainability and innovation, and then the digital, of course, digital solutions that they were maybe did not have the time before to see what was out there and to adapt to everything that was going on. And just on Tuesday, I got this really funny and wonderful message from one of the hotel owners in East Iceland that runs a hotel in Breiðdalsvík in East Iceland, and he sends to me, "Hi Asta, I just wanted to tell you that the digitalization of our hotel is on full speed. For once, we have outsourced all the bookings and all email conversations. Number two, we will have this booking automatic, and number three, they are putting up all cameras all over, so they can know when someone is coming in and so forth. They have had and they are building up this self-service on the bar, and they are building up this QR code to order on the restaurant." So I answered him, okay, so the only one left is to clone you as a robot, so nobody has to meet anyone. And he of course left and said, no, we will be there. But I mean, he has been facing now this huge difficult in getting people to come and work for him, because they have just, I mean, we have many foreigners also working in tourism all over. I mean, in Iceland is no exception for that. And he, I mean, there is so many issues in getting people back. So he just decided, okay, I need to do this. But maybe we will see that in 3 or 4 years, that people are just like thriving or longing for more humanity, and then we will maybe find some balance there between. But I think that maybe some of our habits will just die with us. But I mean, we are all young people still, and I'm not saying that we are, reaching into that. But also when we think about sustainability and the digitalization, we could also look at like the Blue Lagoon here in Iceland. I mean, before the pandemic, they were really, really strong in this booking system that you needed to book before. And then they knew, like many days before, how they needed to recruit their employers, so they could like always be using the best of what they had, and also were able to lower their cost, and then you paid. I mean, if they had a slot maybe at 10 o'clock during the evening, then they could like drop the prices there and so on. So there's a lot of opportunities in steering and building up the right capacity for destinations and for museums and so on, using this technology. So I don't think that we will maybe take step backs in using it, but maybe we will find better balance when people stop being so afraid of each other.
Yeah, I think that's the balance I'm feeling at the moment, especially when you're faced with serving a table and or as like Adam touched on, kind of people arriving, we're all forced booked through the pandemic, and now people are just turning up again, and it is that recovery period. It's going to take time to settle back into, but not go back. I think you were right actually on the point. I've got 7 and 8 year old, and not only are they germaphobe, because that is one of the downfalls of COVID, but they are the next generation, and we should prepare for that. So again, part of our sustainable future for the sector is we're probably in a balance at the moment because we've got different ends of perspective coming to visit, and I guess it's a blend of the two to satisfy the customer depending on what experience they want. And eventually I would imagine digital, because that generation will become the customer, that digital should move and achieve what they want from their experience, albeit that, as you said with your hotel colleague, do we then just become the robots and like, what do the people do for jobs? Because we're going to be replaced by technology and robots. And that's a bit scary for hospitality, but I'm not even going to say, is it the future? Let's debate that in a couple of years. We've certainly covered quite a lot of big topics. I'd say not even just quite a lot, but all the big topics at the moment that are facing the sector this year and for the next few years. I wanted to kind of finish on climate and transport for Astor and for the UK. We've had COP26, there'll be COP27. I think certainly having had it here last year, it's certainly elevated every business, every council, everybody seems to be reviewing their sustainability policies or writing their sustainability policies, and whether individuals are doing it as businesses or whether councils and the country, the sector has a huge role to play in the kind of topic of sustainability. And because of the supply chain, we touch on so many parts of it. So if we were talking to businesses, the sector's made up of so many SMEs. Adam, museum, are you reviewing your sustainability policy, and have you needed support for that?
Yeah, we've it's definitely the big topic at the moment, increasingly so really, and so we're not only reviewing our own sustainability, but also as an aerospace museum, we are looking at in future years doing a lot more events, temporary exhibitions, and just generally building into the core of the exhibition a look at the sustainability of air travel and the future of air travel. And so it's not only for us, it's not just an issue of our own sustainability, but clearly that's a big question, as it is for everyone. And even more so if we're going to have an exhibition on about being sustainable, then you've obviously got to look at yourself as well. So I think it's a huge issue, bigger than it's ever been, more on the agenda than it's ever been before. Obviously coinciding with coming out of the pandemic is extra challenging, because a lot of the sustainable initiatives that you'd love to put in place are actually quite expensive. Even things like we were looking recently at electric car charging stations for visitors, that kind of thing. But we might be able to get the charging points cheaply or free from the manufacturers even, but there's still actually quite a lot of cost there to connect them and put them in place, and all the work that goes on to make that work. While, as I was saying earlier, being very careful on costs and attempting to build back better, as you say, coming out of the pandemic, we're also trying to address the sustainability issues and be better there as well. But it's a big task and a big financial challenge as well, and making sure that you do the right thing as well. Obviously, it's there are a lot of cases where you might think that you're doing the sustainable thing, but then actually you maybe do a bit. It can often be more complicated than it seems. You might choose an option and go, well, that sounds more sustainable, that we're going to have, you know, whatever initiative it might be, say the electric charging points, but then actually, you know, how does that fit versus public transport and or, you know, other things that you could encourage or other ways of getting people to the museum. And yeah, there's a lot of hard work to do on understanding and a lot of expense in implementing it, really.
Astor, are you feeling the same your side as well? It's such a huge topic, and again, as a huge expense.
Yeah, well, it's also a matter of how you produce it or how you talk about it. I mean, now when we are talking about, okay, we are all going back and we will build back better and build on sustainability, and then you start to take, you know, talk about all the terms. I mean, and we are sometimes so much up in the 30,000 feet when we are talking about climate issues and sustainable and the SDGs and how you should do this and that, and the companies are just, can you stop? Can you just, I mean, we are just trying to survive here, and now you're talking about so many complex things, and we can't, you know, do this, and this is just a normal behavior of people that are just trying to survive, you know. So I think that we need to put this into more like it's not an option really to build back if you're not going to do it sustainably, because in the longer run, and maybe not that much in the longer run, it will be so much more efficient for you, and you will be saving so much money on it, because that is also all of this kind of talk about how expensive it is and how complicated it is, and then it will be kind of a turnoff for everyone to jump into it. So we are trying to kind of get the companies with us in understanding and seeing how really simple it is. I mean, we have this encouragement program called Responsible Tourism, and there we are encouraging the companies to put out measurements in 4 really simple topics, and it's the environment and of course the nature. The second one is the local community that they are operating in. How are they doing that, and how can they measure, you know, good and bad in that? It's how they treat their staff members. I mean, do they have them signed up and you know, all the legal things, and do they provide them with everything that they need? It's simple to put that down. And then it's of course the security and the health of both the guests that they are welcoming and the staff members. So this is like really simple, everyone can do it, and then we can encourage them to take the step forward and go into all of these you know, this certification of sustainability and certification of health and environment programs and so on. So I think that for everyone that is like, and now we are also like working in programs or projects that is called regenerative tourism. And I don't know if you have thought about that or have been in that conversation, and I mean, people are not getting into maybe the sustainability when we add regenerative on top of that and put ourselves maybe in the 50,000 feet instead of the 30,000. But I think that the regenerative methodology and talk is really important, and also all of this purpose-driven trips that you're taking. I mean, you travel somewhere, and like I said before, maybe you do something in the destination that will not only leave it as good as it was, but better, by planting trees or helping the community or making an effort. So if everyone that will travel in the future will travel with that mindset, you know, that they will do something for that destination that will help that community grow or do something that will, you know, make the world better step by step, then I think that we are onto something really great. So that is my small optimism in the future of this great industry.
There has been lots of optimism today, Astor. Thank you. And that brings us kind of to the end of our hour together. It has been really interesting. We've spoken about some really top level considerations and topics that hopefully the audience, and whether you're an SME or a big business, we've all got a part to play in this recovery period, and we can all but hope optimistically as it started at the beginning. Let's think optimistic, really exciting. With third time round, optimism, recovery, 2022. Let's see how it goes. Thank you to the audience for joining us today, and thank you to Astor and Adam for joining me to talk about all things visitor economy. And it's been great to have a bit of an international dialogue at the same time. So thank you very much. We'll see you all again soon.